You're listening to the Paranormal UK radio network, the best in paranormal talk radio in the UK and around the world.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Transdimensional Realities. I am your host, Milyssa Leigh, and this is the premiere episode of this new video podcast. We'll be promoting the video on YouTube, and the audio will stream out on the Paranormal UK radio network. So, welcome to the first show. We've got a great guest lined up for you tonight. But before we get started, I wanted to talk a little bit about what the show is going to be about. This isn't just another paranormal show. We're going to be talking about all sorts of different, wild and weird and sometimes scary things that are a part of our everyday reality. I call it transdimensional reality because what is really out there really does expand beyond dimensions. And what we think of as reality, what we've been taught since childhood, is just a sliver of what is out there. It's like looking at the light spectrum, the electromagnetic spectrum. You have the visible light spectrum, which is about this big, and then the rest of the spectrum stretches out so wide, either into the infrared or ultraviolet. And there's a lot more out there than we realize. A lot of people have had weird experiences that they can't explain, and most of these experiences tend to lie on the outside of our view of reality. Most people either dismiss it or ridicule it because it conflicts with their beliefs. And, with this show, we're not looking to change anybody's mind. We're not trying to force our opinions on you. I just want this show to be educational, informative, and just give you something to think about as you're moving forward with this very weird world we're currently in. And there's going to be a lot of different guests we're going to have on that's going to cover so many of these topics. So strap yourselves in as we get ready for our first guest. Tonight, our guest is Kieran Stanislaw Mace. And he is a graphic designer, an author, podcaster, and artist. He hosts the Paranormal Perspectives podcasts. And he is also an author of a book, Paranormality, Normalizing the Paranormal. So hi, Stan. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Oh, yes, me too. I'm looking forward to it. This is our premiere show. So just so you know a little bit about me, I've been in the paranormal for many years. I've done other podcasts as well. So this is a new endeavor for me. So could you tell our audience just a little bit about your background and why we're going to talk today?
Of course, I have to say before I start, good luck on your endeavor. Best of luck to you. I'm sure you're going to do very well. So yeah, a little bit about me. My full name is Kieran Stanislaw Mace. I come from Oxford, as you can hear by my accent. Grew up there most of my life, and it was Oxford where I encountered the paranormal for the first time. My story comes from a NDE, near-death experience that I experienced when I was at the young age of 5.
Wow.
That thrust me into the unknown ultimately. Currently, by day at the moment, I'm a graphic designer, but also by night, I'm making it sound like I'm Batman now anyway, but by night, I'm a podcaster, I'm an author, and I'm an artist. So yeah, that's me, long and short, and very much a family man with 2 very lovely kids.
Oh,
And yeah.
nice. Very nice. So you've also written a book called Paranormality. And, you could talk let's talk a little bit about that. What brought you to write that book, and I
Yeah.
definitely want to get into your near-death experience.
Yeah, of course. So, paranormality, it's written in a very strange way. I don't know if you noticed on the cover, we have para and normality. So, of course, paranormality ultimately being the parallel to normality. So, the book is about posing the question, who considered what is normal? So, because of my personal experiences, I began to realize that the parallel to normality is more normal than you think. That's the idea. So, the book itself, it's an account of my very strong experiences, very visceral experiences I started to have from the age of 5. And furthermore, kind of going through my life into a teenager, into a man, and realize that, well, I keep being told this thing only happens to very select people. You're not allowed to talk about the paranormal, in fact, but yet I see it more often than I would like. And yeah, the mission of the book is really not just simply an account, it's an invitation to the unknown. It's an invitation for you to question your own reality, and you're welcome as a reader of the book to question the stories. It's what I would welcome skeptics. I would welcome believers. The whole point is you deciding on your own what you believe. And if you're not entirely sure, going out and starting that adventure that we're all welcome to embark on to know more about the world, to know more about the unknown, because, I believe the word paranormal is a misnomer, really. It's very much normal, like I say, and removing the fear of the paranormal itself and the stigma around that invites you to be more open to adding to your data set, so to speak, your comparables, to maybe get a better understanding of who you are and where you sit within the universe. So
Hmm.
it's not a standard ghost story. Yeah, it is a ghost story in some parts. There are some scary stories in there, but it is very much an invitation into the unknown.
Well, it falls right in exactly with the goal of this program because with all the experiences I've had, I've learned that reality is much more broader and weirder, wonderful and scary at the same time than we
Yeah.
realize because we're just looking at what we're taught growing up, what paradigms we believe in, and it's usually a very thin um, point of view, and there's so much going on all around us. Most people either just don't want to acknowledge it, they're afraid of it, it goes against their beliefs. So, but I very much am interested in all of the weird, high strangeness experiences that we've had in life. And I've had a fair share of my own too. So let me
I'd love
ask
to
you.
hear it.
uh, Let me ask you then about your near-death experience at age 5.
Yeah.
What happened there, and what did you experience?
Yeah, of course, as you can imagine, it's quite an emotional story to tell, and it's a story I kept to myself for much of my life. I was brought up in in the religious world. I was told the way the world is supposed to be, and I soon found at at the very young age of 5 that there is more to this world. There's more behind the veil, so to speak, and it's only been until the last year or so that I've began to share that story more publicly through this book and through my podcast
Hmm.
to show people it's okay to talk about these things. This is all part of healing, and it very much left me with PTSD for
Hmm.
many years, and eventually that developed into a complex PTSD as well. It's not fun, and it's not something I would wish on any child, especially looking at my 2 kids today. Like, I'm so grateful that they didn't or haven't experienced what I've seen, really. So my NDE happened in the 90s, so that's quite some time ago, and it shows how old I am as well. So
Don't
yeah,
get me
I
started.
you're just right. They always say age is but a number, really. It's just our body that is aging ultimately over time, but we
Yeah.
are forever. But
People,
that's
yeah,
another part of my
people
story.
say age is just a number. In my case, it's a pretty big damn number. So,
You're fine. You look great. Well, so it's when I was living in Oxford and I was on the way to visit my grandmother. We were crossing a road, a junction at the time, and it was a green light for pedestrians to cross, red light for cars to stop. And There were two or three cars stopped at the junction, and we just began to cross the road, and it was just with me and my mum. I was just halfway across the road, and from this point, everything is ingrained in my memory in the most ridiculous amount of detail, really, and hence why it gives you PTSD, really. So yeah, to the right of me, just before this thing happened, I heard a woman's voice in my ear, my right ear, saying, "You shouldn't be here." And just as I heard this voice come to a close, everything went black. And what I didn't know at the time, a car had run the red light, going at full speed, overtaking all the vehicles, and they had hit
Mm.
me head on and just only just narrowly missed my mother behind me. And without going into too much detail, I was in a very, very bad way, and I'll never forget my body being that severely broken and being in that much pain. Um, I was thankfully helped by members of the public. They came over to assess me, call an ambulance, and also apprehend the man that was trying to escape the scene, the man that ran me over. He was trying to make his way out and, of course, help my mother at the time. So, as you can imagine, the situation was just all over the place. Cacophonic would be the word. So, yeah, I remember being rushed to the hospital and was taken to the emergency room to have my first major operation. Everything was a blur at that time. And at some point, I found myself standing in the hospital. Previously, my legs were completely broken. They were like noodles, essentially.
Mm.
Was a horrible detail. But yeah, previously they were broken, yet suddenly I was stood. I didn't question it at first. I just thought I just got up out of bed and was walking around. But
Hmm.
something seemed a bit strange in this moment because reality seemed to be a bit off. I felt there was a different weight to this world. Like there wasn't gravity, but I was kind of held there. And like colors looked a bit different. But I noticed that my vision was ultra sharp. I could see every last little grain of detail in the ground, in the walls. And I came to realize I was stood in the hospital hallway. My instinct was to find my mum. You know, naturally you would do that at that age. So I walked towards the first opening, and it was a doorway into one of the rooms where one of the kids were being looked after in this pediatric ward. And I remember specifically waving at this kid, and he didn't respond. And I thought, "You can see me, I'm right here." So I waved at him again, and I shouted to him, and nothing. I thought that's strange, and I walked a bit further on, and I saw a doctor walk past me, and I waved at him as well, and nothing. I saw a nurse walk past me, and I tried to grab her jacket as she walked by, and she walked straight past me, and it just got weirder and weirder as I walked past room after room, trying to get the attention of these kids, and it's that feeling of being lost in like in this liminal place that you don't know why you're there. You can't explain why you can suddenly walk again. Like my pain had gone, and my instinct again was to find my mum. So I walked down this hospital corridor further along. I turned left and turned right, and just memorizing all the details. It's really weird that I can remember the posters on the wall, the cracks, yeah, the broken objects, the different medical equipment. And eventually I found my way to this room, and at first it looked like some sort of a storage room as I approached it because I could see through this glass window and I could see there was some depth in there, but something was almost pulling me there.
Mm.
And I walked into this room. The door was already open as well, and I noticed that something was in there that I didn't understand. And this is where I begin to struggle to explain what this thing was. In this room, I remember seeing there's storage cabinets, medical equipment, and this wall of holes, lots of large, deep holes with pieces of metal sticking out of them, which looks very strange. But in this room, I felt like there was something so incredibly vast, yet at the same time, I couldn't see it. It's a hard thing to explain. Like, imagine like an object moving so fast that you know it's there, but it's moving so fast it's beyond your vision. It's like at a vibration that's higher than you can
Hmm.
understand. I hope that kind of makes sense there. But it felt very imposing, like almost like you're embracing a planet, really. It's something that's so fast beyond you that whatever it was kind of sucked me in. And it was like being pulled into a black hole, really. And I had this most immense download of information. I was showed many different places, planets, places in space, cities, some cities long gone and people, and it was like it was too much information, like an overloaded socket, basically, like too much electricity shooting through you, is the best way I can describe it. And it got faster and faster and faster and faster and faster, and it was as if I was beginning to comprehend like infinity, like everything was everything, and I became like one with everything.
Mm.
And it was only scary for me at the time because it was just the overload. I don't think whatever was there was bad or good. It was just there. It just always has been, whatever it is. And I remember one particular part of this vision. I was flying through the sky, and I saw as I approached this walkway over this lake. It was a really unusual scene actually, because nearby I could see this train yard and a bridge going over it. But this bridge kind of crossed over the yard, went down with these steps, and then onto like another bridge that was elevated over this waterway.
Mhm.
And I slowly landed on this bridgeway. Again, I could see all the details. I could see the chain link fence, all the cracks, like everything. I could see everything, every molecule in the water, like every molecule in the leaves. It's so bizarre. But as I landed, I could see there were these teenagers on the bridge, and they were wearing these hoodies. I think they were dressed in white, but wearing kind of like tracksuits, and best way I can describe it really. But either way, they were the first people that noticed that I was there, because as I landed, like one of them jumped as I approached, and then I tried to get his attention, and then he couldn't see me again. But something made this person like jump. I don't know what happened really, but it's at that point I began to think of my mum again, and I was called back to where I was in the hospital again, and I furthermore had this big download of information, getting more and more and more. I was being shown all these places again and taken all over the universe, and eventually I just wanted to scream, and I didn't physically have a voice box to scream, but I wanted to scream and I couldn't.
Mhm.
And I just thought of my mum's face, and I was immediately transported back into my body. And it felt like I'd been out there in this, in between for a long, long time. It felt like anything between like a second to years to centuries. It's really weird to describe when you're in a place that has no time. But I came back, and I must have woken up, and it had been a couple of days where I'd been into at least two or three operations to obviously stabilize the body. And I saw that my legs were in casts. I had one leg was suspended up in the air with metal rods sticking through to obviously fuse the bones together. So I physically couldn't have walked. So I assumed at first that was a dream, and I just continued with life from there, like just going through the agony of all the treatments, the various drugs that I had to take at the time to keep my body. My mum was there every step of the way. Like my mum is like my true superhero. Like I don't think I would have survived as well as I would have without her there. She never left my side for literally weeks. And yeah, I got better and better and better, and eventually I was invited on this little trip from this nurse. She said, "Hey, look, you're doing a bit better now. Like, would you like a change of scenery?" And I thought, well, great. Okay, if you can peel me off this bed, then yeah, have at it. And yeah, she did struggle a bit though, because I was quite heavy, I admit. But yeah, she lifted me into this wheelchair, and bless her, and she took me on a stroll of this hospital. And just as I entered the first hallway, I thought, I know this place. This was my dream. And as I went by the different openings to the different the rooms where different kids were, that was the first kid I saw. That was the second kid I saw. I saw the posters. I saw the cracks in the wall that I saw in this dream. And the strangest thing is, I told this lady where to go, left, right, and eventually I found myself looking at the room I saw and met this entity. And it was through this security gate, but you could see through this window. And there's a reason why there was security there, is because it was a morgue. For some reason, I found myself in a morgue in the other world, other side, whatever you would use to describe it. And that's when I realized that all of this aligned with this so-called dream. And that was my first experience of what psychologists call ontological shock. It's this realization that your reality, your known reality before, is now no longer relevant. It's been overlaid with something entirely new, and it's a lot to comprehend. So I naturally screamed the house down, as you would imagine. And the poor nurse had no idea what was going on, bless her. And so yeah, she eventually took me back and assumed it was maybe the psychological trauma. Eventually, it does hit you when you begin to be more kind of together in the mind. And yeah, I try to continue with my treatments. And the last part of this NDE is, well, a couple of years later, after I left hospital, was doing much better. I was out in Oxford with a friend of mine. And if anyone knows the city of Oxford very well, it's very well known for traffic. And us being us, we thought, okay, well, rather than going the main way, we'll use the secret way in. And there are all these paths on the outskirts of Oxford called the Devil's Backbone, interestingly titled. So I took that way in with him to avoid all the traffic, and it was my first time doing that. And followed the path along. It took a while to get there, and I thought, no, okay, well, I'm looking forward to going into Oxford, maybe doing some swimming there. It's going to be worth it. And suddenly I saw this image. I saw the walkway that went up over the train yard. As I took I think the final step up to the top, I realized that everything perfectly aligned with the thing that I saw during my NDE. That over the train yard and down a few steps was the big lake with the chain link fence, the the path that headed over the bridge that went over the lake, all perfectly aligned. And again, ontological shock, I froze. My poor friend had no idea what was going on, but I just froze and couldn't stop shaking. And again, it showed to me that you seem to be able to exist without your body. And that's what I've been doing over the last few years, really, is just getting a better understanding of that event that kicked off my paranormal journey. And also get a better understanding of the fact that consciousness doesn't seem to be localized. And I've questioned how consciousness seems to work, but at the moment I'm currently arriving on the fact that we're kind of like radios. We have a form of consciousness transmitted into this vessel that we're in currently, kind of like you're driving a car, really.
Mhm.
That there are situations in this life where you can temporarily leave and gather that, external data, the information that comes with that. But yeah, I mean, there's a realization that we are more than what we are. And at least a positive out of this experience was before I had this NDE, I wasn't creative. Out of all the operations I had and whatever it was that happened with this big download, I seemingly just turned into an artist. I furiously drew all the way through hospital to try and stem the pain. It's kind of like I'll say it's like a bloodletting of pain, really. The more I drew, the more I forgot about the physical pain that I was going through. And that's what led me into the career that I have today, really. Like I'm an artist, I'm a designer in the day. It's a gift that I'm really lucky to have. But this thing kind of sent me back with this extra cognition that I'm able to perceive things differently. I
Mhm.
seem to be able to somehow acquire information at the right place at the right time. And yeah, I mean, imagine being that kid coming back to life in this world, having to fit into the life that you had before, and being in a situation where you can't really talk to other people about these kind of things because it will be seen as bad or evil or anything that is
Oh,
a
yeah.
parallel to their understood reality. It scares people. And I get why, because they're taught that way and it's not their fault. But it's taken me many, many, many years to be at peace with that. Like, okay, I had that experience. It's not my fault. Ultimately, it's the fault of the person that hit me with the car, really. But anyway, people make mistakes.
Well,
That's all forgiven, really. But yeah, yeah.
I
Go
was
ahead.
gonna, I was gonna make a comment. Two things. Well, first of all, when you said you really weren't creative before this happened, but you were also only 5, so you had a long way to go to come into yourself. But
Mhm.
I do believe the NDE definitely opened up a lot of things for you. The other thing I have is during the NDE, at any point, did you ever interact or see anybody else, or was it just you traveling through these different areas and then having the
Hmm.
major downloads? Because a lot of people who have NDEs
Yes.
describe meeting spiritual beings, other people, family.
Yeah. That's a good question. I mean, for one, yes, you're right. I didn't have many years in this life to know who I was truly, but I wasn't really interested in art at that age. Yet suddenly I was furiously interested and have been ever since, really. I'm not sure, was it trauma? Was it a gift from the other side? I just don't know. But either way, yeah, it's a hard thing to answer really because all I know is I didn't enter the other side and meet deities that other people would hope that I would meet. At the time, I worshipped Jesus. That was just part of my upbringing. I didn't meet that person there. Doesn't necessarily mean whether that's that person is real or not. I'm not debating that, of course. But all I knew is I met something that was so vast, and maybe I would describe it as a singular being, but the way in which I connected to it, I felt like it was everything. So I've deliberated as to whether it's is it the gatekeeper at the edge of time, basically the person that maybe takes you to the beyond, because I was ready to go at that point. But I eventually decided, okay, I want my mum. This is the life that I chose to have. I'm gonna, stick it through. Um, but yeah, the information download was so fast. I can't say whether I remember all the people that I met out there. Over the years, as I began to delve into those memories, it's slowly unpacked over time. I've remembered more things. I've been able to connect to more things from that experience. But one in particular, if you don't mind me telling you a little
Go
link to
ahead.
this story, was roughly about a couple of years after I came back from this experience. I was at school then, trying to be a normal kid, basically. The beings that I met did eventually come to me. There were these moments where I'd speak to people that I used to call the Sky Doctors. I didn't tell anybody then because, yeah, you didn't want to give the wrong impression. But it's strange because I used to be this particular meeting used to happen about 3 to 4 times a week, roughly. Usually when I was at school, interestingly enough. Usually lunchtimes I'll be out in the grass playing with my friends, just having fun. And I had this feeling that I need to walk away and take just a moment aside. I used to walk away from my friends and just lie in the grass. And I instinctively used to just look up at the sky and listen to the vibrations of the planes flying by. And when the planes left, I could still hear these vibrations getting louder and louder. And what I would see is an opening in the sky. It was kind of like I was looking up through a portal where people were stood up and looking down on me. And there were these beings that I would listen into, like they were all conversing, talking about something, and eventually they would talk to me. And in these meetings, I could understand everything they were saying, but they weren't using words like I'm using with you now. They would just have these knowings they would pass. And I used to call them the Sky Doctors because I felt like when I left hospital, the physical doctors were there to make sure my body was getting better, and they did a great job with that. I felt like the Sky Doctors were there after just to continuously check up on me to make sure that, okay, I was thrust out of my body, I returned back. I think they're just trying to make sure that I'm settling in okay because I was still quite young then in this life. So yeah, when I would walk away from these meetings, I mean, these meetings would last between 5 and 10 minutes, and eventually my friends just got used to me walking away. They didn't really question it too much. I used to walk away just feeling at peace. It's like I had a moment of just fresh, clean air in my heart. And each time I would meet them, I would feel just a bit better. The trauma that stayed in my body and my mind just got a bit better over time. So yeah, I mean, those the experience that I had during the ND maybe introduced me into other things I would later speak to. So I hope that in some way answers your question.
Uh, it does. It unpacks a lot. Can One of the things that I've always, well, I in my research and journey, what I've learned, I've gone through a lot of spirituality and training. But one thing that I've always heard about is that we have our higher self, the as you mentioned, there's a spiritual aspect on the other side and poking through into our bodies here while we
Mm.
experience these lifetimes. But that higher self always has all the knowledge, everything, and is part of everything else. And I wonder if you're in your state, you're physically being downloaded with information, or that as you move further, your mind was opening up to just accept the information that was already there. So,
Yes, yes, that is interesting because it did affect the way my brain worked. I mean, there's downloading of information physically into your body, as in your brain's, the neuron connecting with neuron to converge and retain that information. the information I received wasn't in the brain, it was direct to whatever it is that I am sat within this vessel ultimately. And it affected the way my brain worked quite a lot. When I was a kid, no surprise, I was bullied quite a lot. But there was something about me that made people feel a little bit uncomfortable. Like I wasn't ever rude. I was an extremely polite child. Maybe too polite for most people, quite frankly. Mainly because I didn't want to offend anybody because I'd already been through so much trauma. A
Hmm.
natural response to trauma is to try and be as nice as you can because you don't want to deal with another bad situation. You just want everything to be okay and just be a normal kid. But some kids just, well, a lot of kids just felt quite uncomfortable and they couldn't put their finger on it then. And I didn't know as well because I just thought maybe I am just a horrible kid. But it seemed to be like as I conversed with people and got to know people over time, there was something in me that was more like a mirror. If you had something bad come out, it's going to come out in some way or form. And some people would tell me things that maybe they wouldn't tell most other people, like quite personal things. Sometimes they felt naturally, comfortable to tell me. And some people would tell me certain things that they maybe didn't want to tell me, hence why they sort of responded in anger. So I don't know what it is that kind of left me with some sort of a portal of some sort. And I'm not special in any way. I'm not saying that at all, but I just seem to be something that it's almost like an invitation to tell, to share. It's really weird, but I tried to ignore it for much of my childhood and my teenage years and pretty much my early adulthood because I didn't want to be that weird kid anymore, that kid that people constantly pursued and harassed because they didn't understand what I was. So naturally their response is to respond with anger and hate and all that kind of thing. But yeah, I almost tried to just hide it. Now, there's at one point that I became an atheist as well. I did the exact opposite of my religious years, and I spent time as an atheist. And I do have respect for people why they are, atheists. And now, atheism isn't exactly a belief system, as we all shouldn't really know. It's more of a saying, okay, you believe in X, Y, and Z. Basically, you can't present me with X information. I'll deny that basically until you prove me otherwise. I mean, that's quite a reasonable proposition. But I was more in that way because I wanted just to forget all the crazy, crazy things that I saw that nobody will be able to help me to even begin to understand. Because being an atheist then meant that I'm denying what I've seen as an experiencer.
Right.
And it gave me some relief at first, but eventually over time I had no choice because it all came knocking on the door. Because subsequently I ended up living in a very haunted property following NT as well, though. But that's another part of the story. Yeah.
Well, let me comment that when you're talking about people seem to be attracted to you and telling you things that maybe they wouldn't otherwise. I mean, I look at it that we're all energy and we all
Yes.
exude energy, out of these meat suits that we're wearing. And
Good phrase. Yes, that's very good.
if you're generating that kind of positivity, yeah, I mean, what you put out, you attract back. And I think with your experience, it could be that, it changed you vibrationally, your energy. If we have auras, whatever it is, it affects other people. And they may
Yes.
be attracted to that energy, and which makes them more comfortable to say things they normally wouldn't, or, those people who are saying things that they really don't want anybody else to know, and they get angry. But yeah, it's like energy attracts, and whatever you're putting out, you're pulling back in from other people.
Yeah. Well, you made a really good point about vibration, and that's something I have a better understanding of that now because, as you can probably hear, do speak very quickly, and believe it or not, I used to speak a hell of a lot more quickly than I do now, and I've had to actually, for my podcast, really, I've had to learn how to speak once again in a way that people are able to better comprehend because coming out of that experience, my vibration was so high that my poor mouth. No, it doesn't help having an Oxford accent as well because it's very peculiar. It does take a long time to get through certain things, but the rate in which I spoke for many years, like people would just be baffled sometimes. It would come out so fast that I'd have to re-say what I just said numerous times until they eventually got it. And I used to get so embarrassed with that, quite frankly. I kept thinking, is there something wrong with me? Like, I kept being checked, like, was it brain damage from the accident though? But no, I passed the checks. I was fine. I mean, it's weird because my mum was warned that I was to come out of because I was so badly damaged. I'm literally a Frankenstein, the best way I can describe it. That she was warned that I would have brain damage, that I wouldn't be able to walk. But here I am today. I'm walking. I love going on long, long treks because every time I walk, I remember how lucky I am to be here and I can do
Hmm.
these things. My cognition back then was fine. I passed the checks of the physical brain, that is.
Hmm.
But yeah, I used to speak so incredibly quickly, and yeah, like I say, recently I've been learning to talk again, and I do believe now, rather than me seeing it as an imperfection or a fault within myself, it's simply a consequence of being brought up to a higher vibration and then being thrust back into your body again and having to live in this world all over again. So it's taken me a good, believe it or not, 35 years to learn how to speak properly again in a way that's better for people to comprehend.
Hmm.
And that takes a lot of work. I've embarrassed myself numerous times over the years to get here, but I had to just trust in myself and go, look, you can only really break through this barrier if you simply forgive yourself for everything that's been through. It's not your fault what you've been through, and you should stop seeing these things that you've been gifted as another problem to deal with. And it's really about owning those upgrades basically and utilizing them for the better. So now I speak to people on my podcast from all over the world, all walks of life, and
Hmm.
offer them an opportunity to do what I did basically and share that story, make peace with it. And also, if they've already made peace with it, educate others with their discoveries. And ultimately, it's about breaking the barriers between each of us. We may all come from different belief systems, different backgrounds, but whether you believe in this God or that God, or don't believe anything at all, or just are spiritual, whatever you may be, we all encounter the paranormal. And we should stop really building these barriers around each other and just simply accept each other, learn from each other. You don't have to believe in everything that's presented, but breaking the barriers, I do believe, is a pathway to a more peaceful world. Because our whole world is pretty much built upon the whole tribalistic concept, and there were no barriers to begin with. So, like I say, the paranormal is just another. The word paranormal, that is just another barrier between you and knowing.
Knowing about reality, the way it really works,
Yes, yes.
um, and how connected we are still to that
Oh,
other
yes.
side. Most
Yeah.
people think it's a separate thing. One day they'll die and they'll go over there when they don't realize they're actually still over there. It's just a
Yes.
piece of that, of who we are over there, is here having this human experience.
Hmm.
And it's it's amazing sometimes. I'm curious with you when you mention the sky beings in your
Yeah.
youth. Uh, have you ever had more encounters with them in your life, or was it just for that period when you were in school?
Um, the Sky Doctors were with me for much of my primary school years. So that was up till when I was about 12 years old. So yeah, between the age of 5 and 12. So it's when I began to become a teenager. They no longer needed to visit. I just knew that I was okay without them. And yeah, my years were quite tumultuous, but I had enough healing to begin to be able to operate here again.
Mhm.
Um, I have had meetings with mysterious strangers since, and they do feel like they're of the same vibration as them, but maybe operating in different ways where I'd meet certain people that would lead me in a certain direction, which is interesting. So, actually, I do have a couple of stories to share with you here, actually, if that's okay, relating to this. Do you mind me
Okay.
going into those?
Yeah, yes, please. That's actually something that I've looked into relatively recently with some friends of mine who've
Oh,
had
okay.
similar experiences. So, yes, go ahead.
Well, we could call these beings angels, maybe. I mean, I've people put all sorts of words on things. I mean, either way, they seem to be of a much higher vibration with much greater insight to the world around us. Really can see further in their perspective. So yeah, still an instance I remember many years ago. basically I'd been with this girl for many years, and I thought she was amazing, the best person ever. And yeah, long story short, she wasn't as much. And I travelled. I used to travel to the train to
Hmm.
see her. She lived many miles away, so that would be like a 3 hour train ride there and 3 hour back,
Wow.
and that was my dedication. Yeah, I didn't have much money back then as well, so I don't know how on earth I afforded that. But either way, okay, well, I discovered something, and I thought, okay, I can't be with this person anymore. I can't trust that person anymore. So me being me in the way that I was raised, I decided to take one last train ride to split up properly to say, yeah, okay, well, thank you, wish you all the best, and that's that really, because it's just the polite thing to do. It's not as if it was like, ending terribly in that regards, but yeah, long story short, she didn't want to talk to me. That person that would be been with me for many, many years didn't even want to answer the door, despite saying, yeah, okay, let's do this properly, which is very strange. But yeah, as you can imagine, I was heartbroken, and I made my way back to the train after only arriving there half an hour before, really, to go back home. And I made sure to enter a carriage that was completely empty because I was in one hell of a funk. I just wanted to just let out all the anger and frustration and hurt, but keep it to myself, really, like, 'cause I don't like to spread it with people.
Hmm.
I embarked from the station, and it left, I think, about 5, 10 minutes after it left the station. A lady and her daughter appeared seemingly out of nowhere because there were doors between the carriages, and when they opened, they used to be so loud, it used to like grind backwards and forwards. It was like this old train. But I didn't hear anything, and then suddenly these two women appeared, and this lady sat specifically next to me, even though it was a completely empty train. She sat directly next to me, and her daughter sat on the seat just on the other side of the walkway. And I thought, okay, that's a bit kind of annoying, really. I thought you could just at least give me some space, but I didn't say anything. And I smiled and just didn't say anything. And then she just started to talk to me, and she introduced me to her daughter. So, oh, my daughter's studying at Birmingham University, and she's doing this and this and this, and my name's such and such, and I come from this place. And she just kept going on and on and on. Like I say, this was a 3 hour. I think at the time it was like a 3 hour, yeah, journey. Then going back, that's 3 hours of constant conversation, mostly one way. And about an hour into this constant conversation that this lady would not relent, I began to kind of talk to her, and I began to move out of this feeling of hurt and desperation, like how could I ever trust anyone again, all that kind of drama. And I began to talk to her with bits and pieces, not really giving too much. And another hour or so went by, and eventually I found we just arrived at the station. Like time just seemed to have sped up. And we arrived at Oxford Station, and it was busy. Like there's one platform to get onto, and it was completely packed with people. And I got up and said, "Yeah, well, nice to meet you," and began to pack my bag away. And I heard the train door open, and what you would have to do is kind of like Moses parting the Red Sea, really, split the people out the way just so you could leave because they were right at the door. And I heard them disappear, and then I turned around, and people were still there as if no one had left. But yet the lady and her daughter disappeared. I mean, yeah, I could say that maybe I didn't look properly, who knows, but they just seemed to have disappeared at the time. And I looked over at the station to see where they could have gone, but yeah, like I don't know what on earth happened. The weird thing was, after I parted the Red Sea of people and stepped onto the station, I had this overwhelming feeling of absolute joy, like unadulterated, pure, childlike joy, like something told me it's going to be okay. Like she wasn't worth it. Your life is going to begin right now. And I questioned it at first because my logical mind was going, okay, well, you're just trying to cushion yourself to support yourself. Either way, that's fine. But I wouldn't take it too seriously. Then that feeling got stronger and stronger as I left the station. And what happened was, over a period of literally a month, I at the time I was a failed designer. Like I was trying to get into the design industry. Nobody would have me. Like I'd been interviewing for literally years and had almost given up. I was invited to my very first design interview about 3 or 4 days later from a job that I applied to like many weeks before that never got back to me,
Hmm.
and got my first job. My design career started out of nowhere. Like I don't know how on earth that happened. A few days later, sorry, excuse me, sorry, a couple of weeks later, I met who is my now wife, and yeah, I mean our first few dates could have been terrible. I think our first date was supposed to be 2 hours. We ended up spending the entire day in Oxford, constantly drinking coffee. Probably a dangerous amount of coffee, to be fair, because our conversation just wouldn't stop. But she came out of nowhere. My life since has been great. Like the best thing that has ever happened to me was that lady doing what she did, though. But whoever they were that met me on the train, like whether they be people of this world who've maybe been pushed into doing a certain thing, or they were maybe angels, who knows? But either way, me meeting those people seemed to have signified a completely different polar shift, really, in my life. Like my life opened up and has been opening for many years since.
It put you on a
Who were
different
they and where did
path.
they come from? Oh yes, definitely.
Yeah. Um, what a life-changing moment going up there. Now, when you were going up there, and just so I understand, the 3-hour train ride, you were going to meet her, but then the one woman, but she dumped you pretty much,
Oh,
or
it
you were
was
riding back.
well, I discovered something that would cause our relationship to end, let's just say, without going into detail. But I said, like, hey, like I'm heartbroken though, but let's end this properly and do the right thing and all that. So everything was all agreed and all that. Then I made my way up, and she just refused to speak to me. Then I think it was maybe in guilt, I don't know, embarrassment, who knows. But looking back at that now, it shows me, okay, that's the person, the way they were then. Anyway, they weren't right for me. Maybe I wasn't right for them. Who knows? But
Uh-huh.
either way, no, I don't hold any anger towards that person at all, really. But ultimately, we have these meetings with strangers, and they just seem to set your trajectory. They pass you through into the right direction, maybe give you that, the nudge that you need. And yeah, if they are real people out there, and if they're listening to me now, thank you very much. I never will forget them, but and that's the kind of person I like to be for other people. Like sometimes I'll say the right things at the right time, maybe nudge them, so I can maybe do the work that they do too. And if you don't mind, I have a second story linked to that, if that's all right. I'm full of a lot of stories tonight.
Okay.
Another another interesting meeting. It's basically forward a few years, and I've been with my wife for a while, and we were having our first child, and it was in a bit of a rush because it all happened very quickly. So I drove over to the hospital, and it was a bit of a rush, a bit of a panic, really. And as I arrived, there was some issue with the parking system at the hospital, and there was a whole queue of cars coming in, there's a whole queue of cars in the car park that couldn't leave. So everybody was jammed. It was just an absolute nightmare. And I thought, okay, I can't leave my car to take her because the moment I walk away from my car will get impounded and taken away. So I was just stuck and I didn't know what to do. And my poor wife was thinking, okay, let's just dump the car and run. Okay, I'm going to have to chance this now. And the weirdest thing was, I was in a queue of cars. I wasn't the first in the queue. But out of nowhere, this old lady came to our car specifically. And it wasn't as if I was making it obvious we're in a panic there because we're inside the car. She couldn't have seen much. But she came to our car specifically and said, there's a space in there. Would you like to have my space? And I wound down the window. I said, oh my God, thank you so much. Because my wife's in labor at the moment. Can you show us? Well, oh yeah, definitely, definitely. And I managed to cut around the line and scooch over between the cars that were waiting. And she took me over to her little secret space. And yeah, made my way in there. And I just got out the car and turned to say thank you to the lady. She'd gone. And the weird thing was, I'd assume that for her to be in the car park, she had to be in a car. So for her to leave the car park, she would have had to leave through the exit, and the exit was blocked. No cars could leave at that time. Or could she have been a stranger that just happened to walk through and go, okay, I'm going to help that one random stranger? Maybe. But the weirdest thing was, yeah, like I say, as I pulled into the car, I could see her in my mirror, and I jumped out of the car. Me being me, I like to make sure I'm polite and thank people straight away. I got out of my car and went to go and thank her, and she had just, yeah, like I say, gone. So who was she? And I got my wife to the emergency room in time to have the baby delivered. It did take a while, admittedly, bless her. But we could have been in a situation where things could have got very dangerous if I couldn't get her to the right nurses in time. Yeah, again, wherever that lady is out there, human or not, thank you.
I have heard quite a few stories like this. My friend Irene, as I mentioned over in the UK,
Mm.
she's told a very wild story once, and I won't get into it because it's her story to tell. but it was
Hmm.
almost the exact same situation where
Oh, wow.
somebody just came out of nowhere in a time of need, helped them, and then when they turned to thank the person, they vanished. They weren't there anymore.
Gosh.
It's incredible synchronicity. You don't know if it's so-called angels or I say so-called because I have a problem with the idea of the traditional view of angels, but
Yep,
obviously
same here.
some some type of this is where it twists your mind. Some type of entity is able to come into our dimension, interact with us to a certain extent, help set things right or make things good, and then they vanish.
Yes.
And I do believe they are from another dimension, whether it's what people would consider to be the other side, heaven, or whatnot. That there are entities looking out for us and
Yep.
helping us along our way. And your couple of examples were just perfect examples of what can happen. The fact that the lady on the train, you just set everything right for you. You had that bad experience, and then within 2 weeks, you had a job that you wanted, and you met someone who you'd be with so far for the rest of your life. So,
Yeah. I just said so far, just not jinx it, so thank you.
yeah, well, I've had a couple of my own experiences there. So,
Sorry.
but fantastic. Now, you also mentioned that you lived in a haunted house before. What was that like?
Yeah, it's not fun. I can definitely say that. Basically, linking into my NDE, what I met at the hospital began to materialize into something, and my first meeting was still at the hospital.
Hmm.
Something was at the end of my bed. I remember one evening feeling a weight at the end of my bed, and this was, in a quite a dark room. I could see the nurse's station to the right of me just lit up, but the other kids were sleeping at that time. And yeah, I looked at the end of my bed, and I could see like a dark object just above the protective bar. There's like a protective bar at the edge of like most beds anyway, like with the clipboard and all that. Yeah, I could see something just at the end that's dark, and it eventually moved up and up and up, and I could see the texture of this like burnt skin.
Hmm.
And I eventually saw a head and some shoulders, and from the dark itself, I could see two white eyes just about coming out of the dark, just fixated just on me. And I felt completely frozen. It was like I don't know, it had some power over me. I couldn't physically move, and I wanted to scream to get the attention of the nurses, and I couldn't. And my voice was taken away, and I could not move. And I actually drew a picture of this a while ago, which I maybe will share with you exactly how this thing looked. And
Hmm.
this thing, like, it was so powerful, like it could literally hold your body in place. And I don't know what happened. I think eventually I did pass out, but I remember being in utter and total terror. And fast forward to eventually when I left the hospital, this thing followed me home. Um, it began to show itself in a way of noise. What would happen is I lived in a house with my mother and my sister, so we had like a single parent household, and
Hmm.
we heard whistling in the street, and I thought it was our neighbour. He's quite a musical person, though. Maybe he does whistle, we assumed. And we heard it on and off every so many nights, and eventually we started hearing whistling inside of our house. And there were times where I thought maybe it's my sister playing jokes on me, and then that's where I remember that she can't whistle, and I don't think she still can to this day, despite being an adult. But still, yeah, it was strange. Like whistling would appear in different rooms, and eventually got closer and closer to us to the point where my sister would hear it, I would hear it at the same time. It would be like it was emanating from the center of the room. It was so loud. And eventually it got more and more confident where friends would come over to our house and they'd hear the whistling. And eventually people just got used to it, this strange noise emanating from nowhere. And at that time, I was having night terrors. So I'd wake up in the night screaming. Obviously, this is the psychological trauma of the accident. I'd wake up screaming in the night. And I remember before my mum could get to me, and it's like, I don't know, 2 o'clock in the morning, like the early hours, he was there in the corner of the room, just stood there watching, like motionless. But I could still move at that point. It didn't have power over me in that regards. He was just there. And there'd be a few nights after where I would do the same thing, and he would just be there watching. And other activity began to escalate. We'd have music. That was the new thing at the time. I remember one night waking up at about 3 o'clock in the morning to the sound of a party. And I thought our neighbour was having a party next door that they hadn't told us about. And I opened the window to check to see which house it was coming from. I realised actually it was coming from inside my room. And I tried to listen as carefully as I could, and it was just loud enough where I could hear it was coming again from the center of the room. And I've heard about the stone tape theory. Like people say that sound noises can be recorded through stone over time. But it was interesting that it was emanating from the center point of the room. I did check at the time to see is it coming from a vent nearby. It could be traveling through different systems, but no, I could hear it. In that night, it was horrifying. As you can imagine, it's just unexpected out of nowhere. Like I could hear people laughing, very old music, like old violins and saxophones and trumpets, and it's like the little kind of band was playing, and I could hear glasses clinking and wine spilling, and it was quite jovial. The best way I can describe it, though, but because of the surrealness of it, it made it very sinister. And yeah, that would happen quite a few nights a week. Eventually, I just got used to it, though. It'd wake me up in the night, and sometimes it almost was comforting because it was nice music. So
Hmm.
eventually, I kind of got used to that, I suppose. I was still having night terrors here and there where I'd wake up and yeah, he would be there again.
I have a
Um,
I have a couple of observations I'd like to make.
yeah, of course.
I know that people in your situation, whether it's because of an NDE, maybe they're having abduction experiences, something that helps trigger someone's psychic abilities, their energy, and all of a sudden it starts to attract these negative things. And
Yes.
they show up to scare you, to intimidate you. Maybe their goal is to keep you from, moving forward with it. One thing I've never really understood, honestly, because I've never, in all my years of investigating, there were only two times I came across something that was a little negative, but nothing like what you're describing. And sometimes I struggle understanding it because in nature, in this world, there's nothing evil. No
Mm.
animal, no plant, no nothing. They just do what they do. And some people might think, if you're in Africa and you're getting eaten by the lion, that the lion is evil, but the lion is just doing what it's doing. There's
Mhm.
no good, there's no evil. It's our perception of it. So when it comes to these types of very negative entities, I question it. I wonder why it is the way that it is. Some of these entities that attach onto people, people like to call demons. I hate that word, because they act like what I would consider paranormal parasites. They come into someone's lives, turn them upside down, make
Mhm.
that person afraid or start to get into bad negative behaviors, and these
Yes.
things feed on it like a mosquito, like oh, I forget what, but it's just a parasite feeding off of that, and the more you feed it, the stronger it gets.
Mhm.
um,
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there. That's yeah, very well said actually. This thing was exactly that. It was a parasite.
mhm.
That there are when you enter the in between. from my first-hand experience, again, I'm not a believer or a non-believer. I'm an experiencer. There's a third state people don't tend to talk about, where
Yes.
you're presented with an empirical evidence of I've literally seen X, Y, and Z. So this is whether you like it or not, that's what it is. And my understanding is there is an in between where, it's between where we go to and where we've been. Of course, it's liminal. It's kind of like, the liminal state, like you describe one room and another room. In between is a hallway. That hallway isn't a place you spend much time in. It's not intended to be that way, but either way, you need to pass through that hallway to get to where you need to be. It's the same way here. Like there seems to be a place just outside of time, and I do believe like it's like I was at the edge of time. Like things were just distorting and like this world, but just falling apart. That there is something there, maybe guarding your entrance or deciding whether you're ready to move on or to go back. Who knows? But there seems to be something there, and there are things out there. And like you say, they're neither good nor bad. Good and evil is a human concept. We're putting measures and labels on things because it makes us feel like we have control.
Hmm.
We decide what colors are called. We decide what countries are called. We decide what the clothes that we're wearing are called. We put labels on everything to make us feel better about the fact that we don't know everything. And like I say, there are things out there that are outside of our comprehension, outside of our understanding, that have always been. And when you come out there, sorry, once you enter the in-between, come back, you attract their attention. They're fascinated by you because you've done what shouldn't happen. And yeah, I don't know whether I did dying wrong, basically, whether I was supposed to die and I just came back and whatever it might be. But either way, I do believe I was meant to come back.
Right.
And this thing followed me. It was fascinated by me, and yeah, it did cause chaos. I go into this in my book anyway. So I mean, this is part of a much bigger story. It's so
Sure.
complex, really. But in short, it affected the characteristics of the people around me. So I used to work at a local retail store, and hopefully you can imagine like the way I was then. Obviously, I was a lot smaller, much more timid, like a teenager, really, and I was so ultra polite with everybody. I was as helpful as I could be. It's just the way I was raised, and again, a consequence of trauma. It's a psychological response, and people used to just explode at me. And this, unfortunately, is part of the retail experience because I always say, like, anyone at a checkout or till, treat them with absolute respect, though, because they do have to deal with a lot, really, in the day to day. But what I had to deal with was very abnormal. It would be uninstigated moments where, could be, say, a customer came in. I remember a while ago, actually, for some reason, he left his bread on the floor. This was like a sealed piece of bread. Naturally, I would pick it up because it's not hygienic.
Hmm.
And he said to me, "Don't squash my bread." And I said to him, "Well, I found this on the floor. Would you like me to get you another piece of bread?" "No, no, you're trying to steal my bread." And I thought that's a strange response.
Mm.
And out of nowhere, this customer like picked up his two baskets full of food, as if he was going to attack me with them. Ran down this walkway, and I was actually at the time stacking freezers full of food. And he cornered me in this freezer and was right in my face, seething, spitting with anger, shouting all sorts of things at me. Like it was a really weird response. But I remember looking in his eyes, and like it was looking at a dead body. That's the best way I can describe it. And I have unfortunately seen one in my life though, but it was like looking at a dead body. There was nothing in there, and he was escalating, getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And it was weird how nobody nearby was reacting. Like this isn't normal. Is anyone going to help? But no, nothing. So I just refused to do anything. So I just stood there and made him realize that he had no power over me. And then he stopped eventually, and I saw his eyes the light returned to his eyes, and he dropped the baskets to the floor. And it almost like seemed like there was some humility coming to him, like he felt really embarrassed. He never said sorry. He refused to, but he was in a state of shock himself. And these things would happen here and there, where people would suddenly escalate out of the blue.
Hmm.
And when that first began to happen, I just thought, maybe I'm just a bad kid. Maybe I need to try even harder to be extra nice. And over time, I began to realize that something is going on that isn't right. And it was at school as well. People used to really focus on me at school, and the same thing where I'd have teachers who I would go to saying, "Okay, I'm having trouble with my maths homework. Can you help me?" That's all I said. Teacher responds to me by slamming the chair down, throwing his pencils and pens across the table, like flipping a table over. Again, I remember the look in his eyes, like nobody was there. And there's this pattern that grew and grew and grew. And yeah, it wasn't a particularly great school, I admit though, but I don't think the teachers were that nasty really. But people would just keep doing that time and time again, and it's exhausting.
It sounds
It
almost,
hurts a lot though,
yeah,
but yeah, but
it,
yeah, sorry,
it's,
go on.
it sounds almost like, a temporary possession of some sort. The,
Maybe, but I think I might be wrong. Maybe I am just that annoying, Yeah, I admit I am quite annoying. I ask lots of questions. That's the kind of person I am, but
yeah, but not
some
what
things just don't seem right.
yeah, not what you're describing. No, there's, ah, I'm very fascinated by all of this and the experiences you've had. Now we are coming up on the hour here. So I would love to have you back sometime and we can talk some more. The
Oh,
now
anytime, yes.
your book, Paranormality, where can people find that?
So the book's available for pre-order. It's coming out in March 2026, though, so it's about 3 months to go now.
Okay.
And so you can pre-order it on Amazon and your local book retailer. It is available it will be available worldwide. So I'm happy to, I'll share some links with you if you guys want to take a look at it though. But ultimately, I'm not here just to sell a book to make money. That's not what this is about. This is really about educating the world that these things do happen, and it's absolutely okay to talk about these kind of things. Because the more we talk about these kind of things, the more that we help each other to heal, the more that we realize that all of our differences that divide us don't exist. We've all been told these different things to believe, and the way, a certain way to see the world, let's just say. And once we break through those barriers, we begin to become better people. And despite all these, sorry about all the scary stories I know, but yeah, despite all these scary stories I've told you, it's made me a far more compassionate person about the human experience. Compassionate towards myself as well, because I've forgiven myself, and it's not as if I should have to forgive myself. But I forgave myself for things that I had no control of, and say to myself, it's okay, you didn't need to be so hard on yourself. You didn't need to blame yourself all those years. And I'm hoping this book may teach others too that may be going through a paranormal experience of their own, really. So, like Ghostbusters say, we're here to believe you, kind of thing. It's that kind of attitude, like we're
Right.
not here to judge, we're here to believe you, we're here to help you. So yeah.
And what is your podcast again, and where and when can people hear that?
Oh yes. You're welcome to come on it. Anyone is welcome to come on it of any background, really. So it's called Paranormal Perspectives. And yeah, I mean it's all free to watch. I make a point saying it will always be free. I'm not there to make money from it though. It's about educating people about these different experiences though. So yeah, you can watch it on YouTube, Spotify, I think Apple Podcasts and various different formats. Feel free to take a watch. Let us know what you think really. And like I say, if you want to be part of it, send me a message and we'll organize something.
I think I definitely will. Well, Stan, thank you so much for coming on the program. This has been very informative and definitely would like to hear more in the future. So, yeah, we might be coming on each other's shows uh,
Well,
again
you're
here
more than
soon.
welcome to.
All
No,
right.
thank you for offering me the opportunity, really, and I just can't believe I'm actually sat here telling this story really after all these years. So I appreciate it. With me having the conversation with you as part of me healing too. So thank you for that.
Oh, sure thing. Thank you for coming on this program. Well, that was a great first interview. I really enjoyed his stories, and there's a lot of truth in everything he had to say. We definitely are going to schedule more interviews with Stan in the future because he has a lot of stories to tell, and definitely looking forward to his book, Paranormality, when it comes out in March. So until then, thank you all for tuning in, and be sure to catch us here on YouTube or on the Paranormal UK radio network at www.paukradio.com. So until next time, you all be good humans, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye bye.